You begged. You explained. You stayed. You tried to prove your worth with presence, patience, and persistence. And yet, they still didn't see your value, still didn't respect your boundaries, still didn't hear what you were silently screaming, until you left. This is one of the most painful truths you'll ever learn. Presence is not always power. Sometimes, it's your absence that finally speaks for you. The central question is uncomfortable, but necessary. Why does leaving speak louder than words? Why is silence the loudest boundary you can draw? Because the act of walking away from disrespect, from inconsistency, from anything less than what you deserve, sends a message that cannot be ignored. Not by them, and not by you. The illusion of words. You thought if you just explained yourself more clearly, they'd understand. If you stayed patient, they'd eventually see your heart. You believed that time would fix what intention could not. But here's the truth. People don't hear your words when they're committed to misunderstanding you. They don't value your presence if they think it's guaranteed. You became predictable, accessible, easy to reach, and easier to ignore. This isn't about playing games. It's about recognizing patterns. When someone repeatedly disregards your feelings, your time, your energy, they don't need another explanation. They need a consequence. And the most powerful consequence is your silence. The power of walking away. Leaving is not weakness. It's not quitting. It's not giving up on them. It's choosing you. You walk away when words have failed, when boundaries have been ignored, when staying would cost you more than it's worth. It takes strength to speak, but it takes even more strength to stop speaking. Because silence, true, intentional silence, forces them to sit with the echo of everything they didn't appreciate, everything they took for granted, everything they never thought they'd lose. It's easy to dismiss someone who never leaves. It's hard to forget someone who finally does. Why respect often follows distance. Let's get real. Some people only understand your worth when they can no longer access it. When they reach for you and you're no longer there. Your distance becomes a mirror. It forces them to confront themselves, to realize what they lost, to remember how safe your presence felt now that it's gone. Sometimes, the only way to shift the dynamic is to disappear from it, to no longer be available for disrespect, confusion, or emotional breadcrumbs. And this doesn't just apply to relationships. It applies to friends who drain you, jobs that exploit you, environments that suffocate you. Respect doesn't always come from being louder. Sometimes, it comes from being gone. The psychology behind it. Here's why this works on a psychological level. Scarcity creates value. When something is always available, people assume it always will be. When it's removed, they reevaluate what it meant. Distance removes emotional noise. Your absence gives them space to reflect, without defensiveness or ego. Time makes them realize what words could not. Power shifts. When you walk away, you take your power with you. You reclaim control over your own peace, instead of waiting for them to give it. It's not manipulation. It's reality. We're not meant to stay where we're not respected. And if leaving is what it takes to wake people up, so be it. But what if they never wake up? Good. Because walking away is not about making them miss you. It's about refusing to abandon yourself. Sometimes you leave and they don't chase. That's not rejection. That's redirection. It means your presence was only convenient, not cherished. And that's exactly the clarity you needed. Their silence in response to your absence is the answer you've been avoiding. It means you were never meant to stay. And that's freedom. Because now, you're no longer staying in a place where love is conditional, respect is optional, and peace is impossible. Self-respect is the real reward. Respect from others is nice. But the deepest, most lasting form of respect is the one you give yourself. When you walk away, even when it hurts, you tell your soul, I'm worth more than this. You no longer trade your time for confusion. You no longer accept half love and full effort. You no longer tolerate people who treat you like a backup plan. You stop trying to prove your value, because your value is not up for debate. When you leave what insults your soul, you finally make space for what nourishes it. The Stoic view. The Stoics were clear about this. You don't control people. You don't control their behavior, their appreciation, or their loyalty. What you do control is your standards, your energy, your presence. Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. You don't scream. You don't beg. You don't play dirty. You simply leave. Not with anger, but with clarity. And that is power. Final thoughts. Let's not romanticize pain. Walking away isn't easy. It can break your heart. But staying somewhere you're not respected will break your spirit. And the moment you choose your spirit over your comfort, everything changes. People will suddenly remember your worth. They'll reflect on your silence. They'll wish they had listened when they had the chance. But by then, you won't need their validation anymore, because you'll have your own. So let this be your reminder. You don't earn respect by explaining your value. You earn it by enforcing it. And sometimes, the only way to be heard is to be gone. The power of absence. There's a strange, almost cruel truth about human nature. We often fail to appreciate what we have until it's no longer there. You could show up every day, be consistent, be kind, give your time, your effort, your loyalty. You could speak softly, love loudly, and carry others through their storms. But as long as you're always available, many won't value what you bring. Why? Because presence, when taken for granted, becomes background noise. And the only thing louder than words, louder than loyalty, louder than effort, is absence. This is the power of pulling back, not as a manipulation, but as a mirror, to show people what your presence actually meant. Absence speaks in silence. Respect is not something you demand, it's something your absence teaches. The world has been trained to expect you to stay, to always answer, to always forgive, to always show up even when no one else does. And when you do that, when you show unconditional presence in the face of conditional respect, you teach people that you don't value yourself. Let that sink in. You don't earn more respect by giving more of yourself away. You earn it by showing that your time, energy, and presence are not free. They are earned, and they are rare. Because anything that is always accessible is easy to overlook. Why people wake up after you're gone. This is one of the most frustrating yet liberating patterns in relationships, friendships, even professional environments. The very moment you walk away, suddenly they see you. They remember your loyalty, your patience, your calmness, your support. The long messages they left on read become the silence they now obsess over. The time they wasted becomes the presence they now crave. And no, it's not because they've changed. It's because your absence finally forced them to feel the weight of what they lost. People don't see clearly in the noise of your presence. They see clearly in the quiet of your withdrawal. This is not revenge. It's not punishment. It's truth being revealed by distance. Why absence creates respect? It breaks the pattern. Most people are stuck in cycles. You respond the same, they react the same. But when you disappear from the cycle, you disrupt it. You force a new awareness. It reclaims your value. Constant presence is interpreted as neediness. Absence repositions you as a choice, not a given. It forces reflection. When you're gone, people can no longer deflect. There are no arguments, no defenses, just silence, and the truth echoing in their mind. The irony? You may have said the same things 100 times, but it's your absence that finally says it loud enough to be heard. The masculine energy of pulling back. In Stoic masculinity, presence is purposeful. It's not just showing up, it's deciding where your presence deserves to be. You're not here to beg. You're not here to please. You're not here to convince anyone of your value. You are the standard, and standards do not chase, they attract. When you remove yourself from people who once mistreated, ignored, or underestimated you, you're not just setting a boundary. You're reclaiming your power. You're no longer reacting to them. You're responding to yourself. You're saying, if I'm not respected here, I won't be here. That, right there, is strength. Never beg for respect. Let's reflect on this quote. Never beg for respect. Disappear, and let your absence teach the lesson. When you beg, you devalue yourself. You become a man trying to convince others of his worth. But worth doesn't speak through arguments. It speaks through detachment. Disappearing, emotionally, physically, energetically, is not about ghosting. It's about alignment. You stop showing up in spaces where your presence is not honored. You stop giving access to people who treat it like an option. You stop feeding connections that drain your self-worth. And in doing so, you allow absence to deliver the final lesson. You lost something you won't find again. Not all absence is physical. Here's the real gem. Absence doesn't always mean you vanish from their life. Sometimes it means you remove your emotional investment, your reaction, your dependency on their validation. You can be in the same room with someone and still practice powerful absence. You no longer explain yourself. You no longer try to make them see. You simply are, unbothered, unattached, unmoved. And in that quiet shift, the power dynamic flips. Why absence builds self-respect. This isn't just about them. It's about you. You might think staying proves your love, your loyalty, your strength. But sometimes, staying only proves you don't love yourself enough to leave. Walking away says, I don't need your validation. I won't be available for confusion. My peace matters more than your approval. And every time you honor yourself like this, your identity gets stronger. You stop being the man who needs them and become the man they can't replace. When absence is permanent, yes, sometimes you disappear and they don't reach out. They don't come back. They don't apologize. Good. That is not a loss. That is the confirmation you needed. That is the proof that your absence revealed who they really were, not who you hoped they'd be. Absence clears the fog of illusion. It protects your future from people who would have continued to slowly destroy your self-respect. So let it go. Let them go. Let absence close the chapter. The final reminder. You don't owe anyone your presence just because you once gave it. You don't earn respect by giving more than you're receiving. You don't build power by staying where you're disrespected. You build power by removing yourself. You build peace by not returning. You build identity by knowing your worth, whether they do or not. And when you walk away for the last time, don't look back. Let your silence carry the truth. Let your absence speak the lesson. Let your future be louder than your pain. Because in the end, respect isn't earned by pleasing. It's earned by leaving. Let's make one thing clear. There's a world of difference between having standards and begging to be seen. One is silent power. The other is loud desperation. One comes from self-worth. The other comes from self-abandonment. In every connection, romantic, professional, personal, you are either communicating your value through your boundaries or exposing your weakness through your begging. Let's break it all down. Boundaries are quiet. Begging is loud. Boundaries don't shout. They don't plead. They don't explain themselves. Boundaries are silent lines drawn not for others, but for yourself. It's not about punishment. It's not about making a scene. It's about deciding, this is the treatment I allow, and this is where it ends. You don't announce a boundary. You live it. You enforce it. Begging, on the other hand, is loud. It's full of emotion. It's dramatic. It repeats the same conversation over and over, hoping for a different result. Begging says, why don't you see my worth? Please change. Please treat me better. I've done so much. Doesn't that matter? It comes from a place of lack, from insecurity, from fear of being abandoned. Here's the truth. The louder you get about your worth, the more it shows you don't believe it yet. Because a man who knows his worth doesn't argue about it. He leaves. When words don't work, distance does. You've tried talking. You've expressed your needs. You've explained your feelings. You've repeated yourself with patience, maybe even tears. But nothing changes. Why? Because some people don't learn through explanation. They only learn through loss. Words have limits. Distance doesn't. The moment you pull back, not to punish, but to protect your peace, things become clear. People who ignored your boundaries when you were available now realize they crossed a line. People who laughed off your concerns now sit in silence with the weight of your absence. And people who thought you'd never leave now wonder how they misjudged your strength. You don't teach people by speaking louder. You teach them by no longer being available for what doesn't align. Begging kills your power. Here's what most men don't understand. Every time you beg, you shrink. Every time you over-explain, over-text, over-give, without receiving the same energy, you silently tell the world, my peace costs less than your attention. And the worst part? You teach people how to treat you. So when you beg, you teach them. You're okay being disrespected. You'll settle for crumbs. You have no line they can't cross. Eventually, your begging becomes background noise. They stop hearing you, not because they're cruel, but because they've learned you'll stay anyway. So they test you again and again, not out of malice, out of comfort, out of familiarity, until you walk away and never look back. That's when they listen. But by then, it's too late. Boundaries are not about them. Let's be real. Boundaries are not about controlling someone else's behavior. They're about controlling your own access to disrespect. You're not here to make someone change. You're here to decide what you will and won't allow. And when that line is crossed, you don't scream. You leave. That silence says more than any speech ever could. Self-worth is proven by what you walk away from. You can tell the world all day that you have standards, values, principles. But no one will believe you until they see what you walk away from. When you walk away from a woman who plays games, that's self-respect. When you leave a circle that drains your energy, that's power. When you say no to what feels good short-term but hurts long-term, that's maturity. Walking away is not weakness. It's confirmation. You no longer need to be understood, liked, validated, or chased. You need one thing: peace. And peace doesn't come through begging. It comes through boundaries. Begging is rooted in fear. Why do people beg? Because they fear losing love, losing approval, being alone, facing themselves. But that fear is a lie. Begging doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you stuck. It chains you to people who don't respect you. It traps you in cycles where you always give more and receive less. And it disconnects you from your true power, the kind that says, if this connection requires me to beg, it's not for me. Boundaries are rooted in love for yourself. The most powerful thing a man can do. Stop trying to be understood and start understanding himself. And when you do that, when you understand your worth, you'll stop overexplaining, overextending, overcompensating. You'll start protecting your space, your time, your soul. You'll stop showing up in rooms where your voice isn't heard. You'll stop watering relationships that don't grow. And you'll realize, I don't have to beg for what aligns with me. What's real meets you where you are. What's fake makes you chase. The test: how do you react when they push you? The test of a man is simple. When someone disrespects you, do you explain louder? Or do you get quieter and step away? Most people never build the courage to walk. They wait. They hope. They stay. But what you tolerate today becomes the treatment you normalize tomorrow. So the next time someone crosses your boundary, ask yourself, am I begging for something I should be walking away from? And if the answer is yes, move accordingly. Final thought: silence is the loudest answer. Sometimes, the most powerful sentence in the world is this: this doesn't work for me anymore. No anger, no drama, no explanation, just clarity. And after that, silence. Because silence is loud. Silence is power. Silence is your boundary, spoken without words. So stop chasing, explaining, or begging. Draw the line. Hold it with honor. And let your absence speak the truth your words never could. Detachment is strength. We've been conditioned to believe that staying is strength. That holding on, fighting, explaining, pleading, somehow makes us noble, loyal, real. But here's the truth. Sometimes, the strongest thing you'll ever do is walk away without noise. Detachment isn't coldness. It's not bitterness. It's not running from emotion. It's the art of keeping your peace sacred, even if it means letting go of everything that disturbs it. Leaving isn't weakness. It's control. Most people confuse leaving with giving up. They think walking away is failure. But here's what they don't understand. Leaving isn't surrender, it's strategy. When you walk away from a toxic relationship, a disrespectful dynamic, a cycle of emotional chaos, you're not losing. You're choosing peace over pride. You're choosing clarity over confusion. You're choosing self-control over self-destruction. You win the moment you no longer need to win anyone over. You reclaim power when you stop trying to convince people to treat you right and simply remove your presence from those who don't. It's not about being heartless. It's about being wise enough to know when to stop pouring into the wrong cup. The Stoic principle: indifference to what doesn't serve. Marcus Aurelius said, be indifferent to what does not depend on you. That means you no longer base your peace on how they act, how they feel, whether they stay or go, whether they see your worth. Detachment means you still care, but you no longer cling. You still love, but you no longer lose yourself. You're present, but not possessed by what you can't control. And that's where your strength is born, not in pretending not to feel, but in refusing to let feelings control your actions. Emotional control is power. Detachment is emotional clarity. It means this: you can sit in a room with someone who once meant the world and still be rooted in peace if they no longer respect your value. You can feel the pull to reply to the message, but choose silence instead, not out of ego, but out of respect for your own boundary. You can still care and not return. You are no longer a prisoner of impulse. You're the master of your emotion. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to win. You don't need to be seen or heard or understood. You just need your peace. And when you put your peace above your pride, above your pain, above your past, you become untouchable. Detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. Let's break the myth. You can love and still walk away. You can forgive and still choose distance. You can wish someone well and still never speak to them again. This is what people don't understand. Detachment is not the absence of love, it's the presence of wisdom. It's knowing what disturbs your spirit, what clouds your vision, what dims your light, and what costs you more than it gives you, and then choosing, with calm power, to no longer allow that energy in your space. You don't slam the door. You don't yell. You simply close it and lock it quietly. He who leaves with peace wins in silence. People think winning is being right, being heard, getting the last word. But here's the truth. The real victory is walking away with your dignity, your integrity, and your peace. Not everyone needs to understand your decision. Not everyone deserves access to your explanation. Your life is not a courtroom. You don't need to defend your peace. Sometimes, silence says more than the perfect speech ever could. When you leave without bitterness, when you walk with grace, when you disappear with peace, you win, not in their eyes, but in your own. And that's the only respect that matters. Don't let guilt keep you stuck. Detachment takes courage because it often makes you feel selfish. You'll ask, what if I'm giving up too soon? What if I'm being heartless? What if they change and I miss it? That's the guilt talking. That's the old version of you, the one who put everyone else first. But listen, self-abandonment is not love. Suffering in silence is not strength. And being loyal to disrespect is not noble. The guilt will pass. Your peace will stay. And the moment you realize that, you'll never fear detachment again. True detachment equals unshakable inner peace. Think about this. What would your life look like if you were emotionally free? Not reactive, not anxious, not chained to someone else's validation or apology. Imagine this level of power. You wake up and no message, no person, no opinion controls your state. You move through life with stillness, clarity, strength, because nothing outside of you owns what's inside you. That's detachment. That's freedom. That's the place where peace isn't just a hope, it's your foundation. Final reflection. You don't have to hate to let go. You don't have to be angry to leave. You don't need revenge, explanations, or final words. You need one thing, strength. And strength isn't loud. Strength is walking away from what doesn't serve you and never looking back. Detachment is not giving up. It's leveling up. It's not the end of love. It's the beginning of self-love. So let them think what they want. Let them say what they will. You're not here to be understood. You're here to protect your peace, honor your growth, and stand tall in silence. Because the man who leaves with peace, he wins. When you leave, you shift the power. There's a quiet moment that changes everything. It's not when you argue, not when you scream, not when you explain for the 100th time. It's when you stop responding and start removing yourself. It's when you stop proving and start protecting your peace. It's when you stop showing up for those who never valued your presence. That moment, that's when the power shifts. The chaser loses power. Let's be brutally honest. As long as you're chasing someone, you're beneath them. Not in worth, but in energy. You're signaling with every call, every text, every explanation. You matter more than me. I need your attention to feel enough. I'm willing to sacrifice my dignity to stay in your life. That energy repels respect. You can't beg for attention and expect admiration. You can't overextend and expect them to recognize your value. People don't respond to pressure. They respond to presence and its absence. And when you leave, suddenly, the balance tilts. They're not used to that silence. They're not used to that gap. They're not used to you no longer needing them. Your absence speaks louder than words. You see, when you're always available, always explaining, always forgiving, you become noise. Predictable, easy to ignore, taken for granted. But when you go silent, when you walk, not out of anger, but out of clarity, you become presence. A presence they feel in the quiet. A presence they remember in the moments where you would have answered, but now don't. People don't truly value what they can't lose. When you disappear, they finally realize. You were the one with calm energy. You were the one who held space. You were the one who gave effort, attention, warmth. But now, you're not there. And that's when your value hits. Not through your words, but through your absence. They start noticing. First, it's subtle. They pause before sending a message. They check if you've seen their story. They ask mutual friends about you. Then it becomes deeper. They wonder why you're no longer there. Why you stopped caring. why you moved on with such grace. Because now, the script is flipped. They were once the center, now they feel the void. And the silence you left behind, it's louder than all the noise you ever made. Leaving forces a reevaluation. Sometimes, the only way to make someone see you is to stop standing in front of them. When you're always explaining, giving, showing up, they don't need to think. They don't need to wonder. You're right there. But when you leave, now they have to confront the truth. Did I take them for granted? Why did they really walk? What was I doing that pushed them away? They replay old conversations. They remember your tone, your presence, your loyalty. They realize, too late, that you were the one holding it all together. And now that you're gone, the silence speaks the truth they refused to hear. Your power was never in the noise. It was in the exit. You could have said everything. You could have written a speech, listed the disrespect, defended yourself point by point. But you didn't, because you understood something they didn't. Power doesn't announce itself. Power walks away and lets people feel what they refuse to hear. You didn't leave to punish. You didn't leave to manipulate. You left because staying became self-betrayal. And that act, walking with grace, with peace, with no drama, becomes unforgettable. Because most people leave in chaos. You left in clarity. And that is a shift they'll never forget. The most attractive energy is detachment. There's something magnetic about someone who doesn't need you. Not in a cold way, in a grounded way. When you detach, you're no longer desperate. You're no longer reactive. You're no longer trying to control how others see you. You simply are. And when you're in that state, people are drawn in. Why? Because most people chase. Most people cling. Most people need something. But you chose yourself. You chose your mission, your clarity, your peace. And nothing is more powerful than a person who walks away and never looks back. Respect doesn't come from staying. It comes from leaving with strength. You think you'll gain their respect if you keep giving chances. You think they'll see your worth if you just love them harder, stay longer, endure more. But that's not how humans work. The more you stay where you're disrespected, the less they respect you. Respect is not earned through loyalty to dysfunction. It's earned by drawing a line and enforcing it with distance. One day they'll think back. They'll realize who you were, what you brought, what they lost. And that reflection only happens when you stop giving them the luxury of your presence. Silence is a boundary too. Not everything needs to be said. Not every closure needs a conversation. Sometimes the best boundary is silence. It says, you no longer have access to my time. You no longer affect my peace. I no longer owe you a version of me that breaks just to keep you comfortable. That silence, it's a mirror. It forces people to see themselves without your validation. And it forces you to reclaim yourself without needing theirs. You don't leave to be missed, you leave to be free. Here's the deepest truth. You don't walk away for them. You don't create absence so they suffer. You leave for you. Because somewhere along the line, you realized. You were overgiving. You were overstaying. You were forgetting your own worth to be remembered by someone else. No more. Now you choose solitude over chaos. Now you choose self-worth over temporary comfort. Now you choose to walk, not to be missed, but to be free. Final reflection. Walking away is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's the moment you stop trying to convince the world of your value and start embodying it in silence. When you leave, you shift the power, not by punishing, not by playing games, but by finally realizing your peace is not up for negotiation. Let them notice. Let them wonder. Let them sit in the silence you left behind. Because when you walked, you didn't just leave the room. You took your power with you. And that is when everything changes. Focus on self-respect, not external validation. Most people don't walk away to find peace. They walk away hoping the other person will chase them. They think leaving is a power move, a reverse psychology trick. But the truth? If you leave for them, you haven't really left. You're still emotionally entangled, still performing for their attention, still hoping they'll finally see your worth, now that you're no longer around. But here's the stoic truth. Real power is when you walk away for one reason, yourself. Not to be noticed, not to be missed, but to reclaim your dignity. Don't leave to get them back. Let's be honest. Sometimes we say we're done, but we're not. We ghost, hoping they'll text. We block, hoping they'll chase. We act detached, hoping they'll realize what they lost. But all of that, it's not strength. It's performance. It's ego dressed up as empowerment. You're still looking back, still waiting, still watching. And as long as you're doing it for them, you're still trapped. Because that means your value is still tied to how they respond. But guess what? True freedom isn't about being wanted. It's about not needing to be. It's about walking away and walking forward. Even if no one follows. Even if no one claps. Even if it's quiet. Because it's not about them anymore. It's about you. Leave to get yourself back. What if you made this season about healing? What if you made it about rediscovering the version of you that didn't need anyone's permission to feel whole? What if you stopped asking, do they miss me? Do they still care? Will they realize? And started asking, do I respect myself again? Do I feel proud of how I handled that? Do I even want that energy in my life anymore? When you shift the focus from them to you, everything changes. Because most people stay in cycles of emotional pain because they think they lost a person. They didn't. They lost themselves trying to keep that person. So when you leave with one mission, to get yourself back. Pour into your growth. Instead of waiting for a text, go lift. Instead of checking their stories, write yours. Instead of wondering what they're doing, build something they'll never have access to again. Every second you spend wondering about them is time you could have invested in building a life that makes them irrelevant. Read, reflect, rebuild. Grow so strong that the version of you who begged for attention becomes unrecognizable. Every rep in the gym, every page in your journal, every late night of grind is not just discipline, it's revenge without rage. It's saying, I didn't need you to become this. I just needed to stop forgetting who I am. Pour into your fitness. The body holds pain. It holds heartbreak, regret, frustration. So don't just cry it out. Train it out. Use your pain as fuel. Let every drop of sweat carry away what they left behind. Get lean. Get sharp. Get focused. Not to post it. Not to show them. But because physical discipline is the fastest way back to self-respect. Every time you choose the workout over the urge to check their profile. Every time you hit that last rep instead of sending that text. You win. And every one of those silent wins, they rebuild you. Stronger. Sharper. Untouchable. Pour into your silence. You don't need to explain. You don't need closure. You don't need them to understand how they hurt you. You need silence. Because in silence, the truth speaks. In silence, the fog clears. In silence, you find your voice again. The one you lost when you started living for someone else's attention. Let your silence become your sanctuary. Not as a punishment to them, as a promise to yourself. That from now on, your peace will not be traded for emotional chaos. Let them wonder where you went. Let them sit with the echo of the space you once filled. You don't need to say a word. Your distance says it all. Pour into your mission. Every second spent thinking about the past is a second stolen from your purpose. And the deeper truth? They don't deserve that kind of power. Not anymore. So pour it into something real. Your business. Your dream. Your craft. That thing you kept putting on pause while they played with your emotions? Pick it back up. Because nothing is more attractive, more powerful, more healing than a man on a mission. When you're locked in on your path, the past becomes irrelevant. And that silence, that absence, that disappearance, it's not running away. It's leveling up, so far that you disappear from the frequency of people who couldn't respect you. Self-respect over external validation. Let's make something clear. You're not cold for detaching. You're not heartless for going quiet. You're not wrong for choosing yourself. You're just done seeking validation from people who never had the capacity to appreciate you. And once you truly get that, you don't need closure. You don't need attention. You don't need their approval. Because your self-respect becomes louder than their silence. And that's when you win. You become the one who left with grace. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them twist the story. You stay silent. You stay grounded. Because you know what they don't. That your worth doesn't decrease because someone else couldn't see it. And that leaving with peace, instead of drama, is not weakness, it's evolution. Final thoughts. Don't leave to provoke a reaction. Don't disappear to get a response. Don't heal for an audience. Leave to get yourself back. Heal because you finally realize you were always enough. Not for them, for you. And when you rise, do it quietly, powerfully, with no explanation. Because you're not trying to prove anything anymore. You're just focused now. Focused on building the kind of life that doesn't need to chase, beg, or explain. Focused on your peace, your body, your mind, your legacy, because they were a chapter. But you're the author, and the story only gets better from here. There's a moment in every man's life when something clicks. Not when he gets revenge, Not when he's finally understood, but when he walks away, quietly, powerfully, and doesn't look back. That moment isn't loud. It's not a movie scene. There's no applause, no fireworks. It's just a shift from needing to be respected to demanding it without a word. Because real power doesn't beg. It doesn't explain. It doesn't chase. It exits. And in that exit, everything changes. Stop explaining. Start evolving. You've said enough. You've justified your standards. You've explained your feelings. You've asked for change. And still, nothing. Why? Because words don't teach people how to respect you. Distance does. When you leave, you remove their access. You stop teaching them that disrespect is tolerable. You stop telling them it's okay every time you stay after being disrespected. You stop rewarding their bad behavior with your presence. And suddenly, your silence speaks louder than all your words combined. It says, I'm not here to be convinced I matter. I don't need permission to leave. I'm done negotiating with disrespect. Walk away without the need to be understood. Here's where most people get stuck. They want to walk away, but they also want to be understood. So they keep talking, keep explaining, keep repeating themselves, hoping the other person will finally get it. But here's the truth. People understand. They just don't care. They heard you. They just didn't think you'd actually leave. Because until now, you didn't. But now, you do. And not with drama, not with emotion, not with bitterness. You leave with peace. You leave not to hurt them, but to heal yourself. And that kind of exit, that's a message they'll never forget. Power is found in the exit, not the explanation. Respect doesn't come when you say, I deserve better. Respect comes when you act like it. When you leave the table where love is no longer served. When you stop fighting to be seen and start walking like someone who doesn't beg to be valued. Because people treat you how you treat yourself. So when you finally draw the line, and mean it, everything shifts. They feel your absence. They feel your silence. They feel your energy pulled away. That void, that's not revenge. That's respect being earned through the only language some people understand. Distance. Your absence is your message. You don't need to argue. You don't need to post cryptic quotes. You don't need to play games. Just go. Go and elevate. Go and become unrecognizable. Go and make your presence missed, not by proving anything, but by living in such alignment that their chaos can no longer touch you. Let your discipline speak. Let your new peace speak. Let your growth speak. Because nothing speaks louder than absence when presence was once taken for granted. Detachment equals emotional mastery. You're not cold for leaving. You're not cruel for walking away. You're just no longer giving out access that isn't earned. This is emotional discipline. This is power in silence. This is the highest level of maturity. Walking away without a scar, just a lesson. And what's the lesson? That your peace is not up for debate. That your presence is not cheap. That your love is valuable. And your energy is sacred. So now, you only invest it where it grows, not where it gets drained. Leave without bitterness. Leave with purpose. Bitterness is emotional baggage. It slows you down. But when you walk away without resentment, just a calm decision rooted in self-respect, you rise faster. You gain back your time, your clarity, your focus, your soul. You become whole again, not by fixing the past, but by choosing your future over the comfort of dysfunction. And that choice, that's when you reclaim your life. Don't stay where you're disrespected. Here's what you must remember. Every time you stay where you're disrespected, you teach yourself to accept less. And the longer you stay, the louder the message becomes. That's all I'm worth. But the moment you leave, you rewrite that message. You say, I'm not available for disrespect. My time is too valuable to be wasted explaining my worth. I am not emotionally accessible to chaos. That's not ego. That's self-honor. And it changes your life. Let them wonder. You move forward. Let them wonder why you disappeared. Let them sit in the echo of your silence. You don't owe anyone closure when you gave them chances. You don't owe them access after they disrespected your boundaries. You owe yourself the life you keep delaying. Let them figure it out on their own time. You're too focused now. Too peaceful. Too disciplined. Too committed to your growth to keep playing emotional ping pong with people who never intended to grow with you. You walk away, not to prove, but to protect. You're not trying to prove your worth. You're protecting it. You're not trying to win an argument. You're done arguing. You're not trying to be right. You're choosing to be free. Free from the need to be liked. Free from toxic dynamics. free from waiting for someone else to finally see your value. And in that freedom, you find your power again. Because power was never in how loud you spoke. It was in how quickly you walked when respect was no longer present. Final truth. You won't always get closure. You won't always get recognition. You won't always get "I'm sorry." And that's okay. You don't need it anymore. You've got what really matters. Self-respect, peace, focus, direction. That's the new standard. And it starts the second you stop fighting for a seat at a table that disrespects your presence. Final call to action. Truth. The moment you walk away from what disrespects you, you walk toward your power. Call to action. Don't over-explain. Don't overstay. Leave. And let your absence say everything. Now go build the life that never again requires begging to be respected. Go grow so solid, so grounded, so unshakable, that the old version of you becomes just a memory. Go where your energy is honored, where your values are shared, where your presence is felt, not ignored. Because when you finally walk away for you, you never go back.